I think sometimes it can be easy to pile on, in a sense, especially in an era we're at right now with social media. It's very easy to just see something going on and align yourself with it without really doing too much research into it on your own and figuring out if that's actually where you stand. And I think that trend is no more evident than recently when a certain tealish haired boy is being slandered for winning. And you read the title, you know who this is. This might be the only character in fiction I can think of who will be slandered for winning a fight.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Izuku Midoriya was recently featured on the, Death Battle channel? Whatever nerd stuff I don't watch. Fighting against Miles Morales in a power scaling argument where he won. He obviously won. No offense to Miles Morales, but it's not a fair fight. And like I said, this is the only character I can think of who would still lose when winning, which is incredible. But I don't really know why, so that's what I wanted to look at today. I wanted to look over the last 4 seasons of the show that I've watched and figure out why is it that Izuku Midoriya is the one that's consistently slandered out of any protagonist. So far, I'm caught up to around season 4 of My Hero Academia, the end of season 4 I should say. And through watching the show, I think he's really only had 3 standout moments up to this point. This is not a video about power scaling, by the way. I don't care about power scaling. If you want to get into that argument, I think Usopp will beat everyone because everyone believes him. So, this is not about power scaling, this is about who he is. Deku vs. Todoroki in the 2nd season was a pretty great fight. It was a tournament arc, which I kind of like, it had meaning to it beyond just fighting, activating Todoroki's fire side, blah blah blah, Generation Trauma, all that boring stuff. And it was really well animated, but I struggle to feel, as a viewer, an impact from that fight for Deku. I think for Todoroki it was a good fight, it definitely changed him as a character since that point going forward. But for Deku, it's just another fight that he loses in a way. Like I suppose he wins because he makes a friend and all that, but he's the one who wakes up in the hospital bed, which is kind of a running trend almost with some of these Deku moments that I think lead to him being slandered, where he's just consistently losing. Not that I have an issue with characters who go on a losing streak, I think Sabaody to post-war and One Piece is a great saga, but it feels like he loses a lot more than he wins, I guess. And when he does win, there's not enough impact.
I'm about to bust. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought this was the bathroom.
Now Deku vs. Muscular in Season 3 is a very similar fight, though I actually think it's weaker now that I think about it. It's another well-animated fight. It's cool to see Deku being a hero, he's standing up to the big bad, he's like, I'll save this one little boy who kicked me in the balls by going beyond and having a pleasant day at Burger King. And then he wins. But once again, I feel like it doesn't leave much of an impact on the story. Or it leaves an impact on Deku this time. I'll give it that much. But on the story as a whole, it's a completely separated fight. Everyone else is down there in the woods doing their thing, fighting the villains, escaping, hiding. But Deku gets a great fight, but it goes completely not unmentioned, but it goes completely almost unnoticed.
Medic! Doctor!
Man!
The last fight I want to bring up for Deku is Deku versus Overhaul, which theoretically it should really be the fight that fixes these problems for me, because it's Deku against the big bad of an arc. It's not like a separated fight from everyone else. He's got an audience. He's fighting someone who has actual weight in the world, I think. But it kind of brings me to another issue I've noticed in this series where I'm almost kind of upset that Deku is the main character. In this arc alone, I feel like every side character, every male side character I should say, has a fight that's almost better than this one in my mind. Like, Tentacle Boy, I forget his name, and Kirishima especially, blown out of the water. Those are awesome fights. Fat Gum Mike Goat and Lemillion versus Overall at first, I feel like I was more engaged at that point. And then Deku took over and I was like, oh, well, whatever.
Buddy?
Now to just draw a tiny bit of comparison, I guess, which might be unfair in my mind, but yeah, Hydrogen Bomb versus Coughing Baby. But if we were to compare this to something like Luffy versus Arlong in the East Blue, like episode 50, I think this is still a great fight in the context of One Piece even. You know, it has stakes, the location matters, Luffy's physically destroying Nami's trauma while liberating the village and the East Blue. Arlong is stated to be a threat to the whole East Blue, which, okay bro, but he's liberating people, which, you know, might be his thing as the warrior of liberation. Physically destroying the pagoda, destroying Nami's connection to the place, while having an audience, while affecting people. Like, these are the things that I look for in a final fight of an arc. And most of the time, that's just not there for Deku. And I think that comes down to who he happens to fight, and almost who he is as a person. I think it's fair to say that I don't really like Deku as a character. Not that I don't hate him, but he's just not really my speed of a character that I want to see. You know, I'm more of a Luffy, I'm more of a Gon, Edward Elric type of person, I guess. Honestly, I do think the slander is kind of criminal. Like, it's almost too much. It's still funny, but it's just almost too much. Like, in our lifetime, I think people gotta start putting some respect on Deku's name. Just a little bit, not too much. Just a little bit. Let's upgrade him from fry cook to store manager. I think that's fair. If you like Deku, this is not meant to make you not like him. And if you don't like Deku, I understand. I'm on your side. But really, you gotta separate the character from the slander sometimes. You know, I'm a One Piece fan. I know about the agenda. Alright? I know what slander is. And you really gotta separate the character from the slander sometimes. It's fun to slander Deku, but it's definitely not always true. And I think he might deserve a little bit more respect than people are putting on. But, you know, if we're still keeping him up as Fry Cook of the Year, then I'll support that also.
Dear God.
Todoroki, Midoriya, Todoroki, Midoriya. Wait, why are they both shouting each other's last names? They're fighting about which last name they use when they get married.